Today on Locked On Women's Basketball, Lucas Seehafer and I talk about how we think the Minnesota Lynx have a great chance of beating the New York Liberty for the WNBA championship. This is Locked On Women's Basketball.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Today on the show, we are going to talk to Lucas Seehafer of The Next, and we're going to break down the ways in which the Minnesota Lynx can kind of edge out the New York Liberty this season in terms of winning a championship. So we're going to dig into what the Minnesota Lynx is doing better this season. We're going to dive into their game against the Phoenix Mercury, what was good, what was bad, what they can do better. And then we're going to get in specifically to this New York Liberty matchup, what we're excited to see when the team eventually plays. And so let's get into it. My name is Chelsea Leite. I am a national beat writer for The Next, as well as a few other places. And I'm joined by Lucas Seehafer, who is also a reporter over on The Next and does a lot of great stuff and work around the WNBA as well. And so we're just going to get into a topic that I think has been debated throughout WNBA spaces, but we have a very clear opinion that we think the Minnesota Lynx can win the WNBA championship this year, even as New York has kind of just been bulldozing around teams. So, I mean, we were talking about this before you got on, Lucas, or before we hit record, but you, in your head, the Minnesota Lynx already won a championship.
Yeah, so it's a touchy subject around these parts. Yeah, subject around these parts with those fouls that weren't called at the end of last year. But in all seriousness, I think as of right now, it's clearly shown that the NBA or the WNBA is led by a two-headed monster in the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty, and that both of them have a great shot at winning the WNBA title. But I really do think that if they were to meet up in a series or in the championship again, that the Lynx would have as good a shot as any to take down the Liberty.
Yeah, I think the greatest thing about these two teams and what makes the matchup so fun to watch, well, last year, we haven't seen them yet this year, but both teams are incredibly deep. They have, their stars, they have their role players, and then they have, bench players that can come in and really make an impact. And separately this season, we've seen that be able to take effect for both teams. You have, on the Lynx, you have Natisha Hiedeman, you have Katie Lou Samuelson, who have been coming in and making a big impact. On the Liberty side, you also have Maureen Johannes and you have Nair Sabally when she's not hurt, and those players that can come in. Rebecca Gardner is also, a big name to just have as a bench player for New York. So, when you compare Minnesota specifically this year to last year, do you see any big changes to the team, despite the fact that they didn't really change much as player-wise?
Yeah, I think there's a couple big things that have been going on. Number one is you're right, the player base really hasn't changed much since last year, but the addition of Carly Samuelson to come in and be that 3-point specialist who can slot in into the starting lineup at a moment's notice, I think is huge for this team. Additionally, Natisha Hiedeman is having a career year, in all honesty, and her ability to come off the bench and provide not even solid point guard minutes, but starting caliber point guard minutes. Once Courtney Williams exits has just been huge. I don't think it can be overstated how her play has really elevated not only the Lynx's bench, but like I said, she can plug and play with the starters too, and provide just a great benefit. So I think you're right that overall their depth is their strong suit. I think if you look at the two rosters and you compare them side by side, the Liberty probably have more star power than the Lynx. But I think you could easily argue that the Lynx have the deepest and most talented 1 through 8 in the league. If the team does have a weakness, I think it's that they could use one more. If they could go 1 through 9 of really solid contributors it doesn't have to be anything crazy. If they can go get a player before the trade deadline, who can give them anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes off the bench, and provide just it doesn't have to be stellar play, just a solid role player who can contribute in their own way. I think that would make the Lynx even that much more deadly as a force.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about star power. I don't even think arguably would be the right word to say, but they have the MVP frontrunner, or I guess the MVP frontrunner. And Nafisa Collier is just, you put it best before we hit record. It's her MVP to lose at this moment. She has been absolutely dominant, which was expected given how she ended last season, how she played in Unrivaled, and now heading into the WNBA season. It's just been a continuation of what she's been able to do. But I mean, you look at how she's operating on the floor for her team, and then you compare that around the league with the other stars that we talk about an MVP contention every year, and Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Caitlin Clark has now entered this conversation. And when you think about who is the most valuable player to their team and who they absolutely couldn't win a championship without, I mean, who else other than Nafisa Collier?
Yeah, and I think, she's been, I think every year that for at least a couple of years before this season, there was this conversation of is Nafisa Collier one of the top players in the league? Is she actually an MVP caliber player? And last year it was kind of like, yeah, I think she probably is. And then this year it's just like, yeah, it's not even a doubt. Like, she's one of the best players in the league. Not only did she win Defensive Player of the Year last year, but now she's comfortably leading the WNBA in scoring. She's a menace on both sides of the court. I put out a tweet earlier today that I think she's also developing one of the league's kind of signature moves. When she gets the ball in the paint, it's just like an automatic 2 points, because she does this little almost like a mini fadeaway that allows her to get some separation. And at her length and with her touch, it's just like it's a money shot. So if you look at the way that the Lynx like to run their offense, it's a combination of 4 out with on the perimeter with Fee kind of down on the block, or even just 5 out. And they really have athletes. Not only can Fee kill you at all levels, but their whole roster is set up in such a way that they're really having to pick your poison. I've seen them run, many times this year, almost like a pseudo triangle, where they kind of have 3 people on one side of the court, 2 people on the other. And they're basically, the option is, okay, let's get Fee the ball. And from there, they're making teams decide, hey, do we let Fee either kill us at the elbow or at the block, or do we leave somebody open on the weak side to shoot a 3? And that weak side 3-point shooter is often Carly Samuelson or Bridget Carlton or, people you don't want to leave open to shoot threes. So really, just the way that this team is running offensively has been just so efficient and so deadly. And then last time I was on the podcast, when I was talking to Howard about the Lynx's defense, he asked me, hey, are you concerned about the Lynx's defense? Because I think at that time they ranked like 9th in net rating or something like that. If you look this morning, they ranked 2nd. So not only are they just killing teams on the offensive end, but they're doing so on the defensive end now too. So it's just a perfect storm for other teams to just, when you go and play the Lynx, it's like, okay, what do we do?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, again, Nafisa is such a big part of that. Defensive Player of the Year, 2-way player, that fadeaway that you were talking about. I notice it every game, and I'm just like, oh, that's so clean. But then you have, people like Courtney Williams who come on and make such an impact as an energy player. Kayla McBride is now back in the lineup after missing the first few games of the season. So that's huge, not having to have, kind of spreading out the offensive, responsibility a little bit more. But obviously we talk about their defense, and we'll get into a little bit of their like beginning of the game, end of the game in the second part of this podcast. But is there any flaws that you're seeing? I mean, you watch the team very closely. You've been reporting over the past few weeks for the Next as well. So, do you see any flaws in this system?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much call it any team, and they're going to have some flaw to some extent. The one that points out or that sticks out to me is just their propensity to turn the ball over. I'm looking at the WNBA stat site right now, and they currently rank, let's see here, 13, 12, they're 9th out of 13 teams in turnover percentage at 18.9%. In the regular season, you can get away with that. But come playoffs time, you don't want to turn the ball over. So if they can somehow, now part of that is because of how aggressive they can be, and also some outlier games where they turn the ball over way too much compared to other games. And this is something that Cheryl Reeve has talked about quite a bit. It's just, you can't turn the ball over if you want to win in the long run. So I think that's the one area where if push comes to shove, the team really needs to get better to ultimately, reach the finals again this year.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, let's take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to specifically get into Tuesday night's game against the Phoenix Mercury, which the Lynx ended up winning kind of in a blowout, but it didn't look like that to start. So check us out. Stay with us. This is Locked On Women's Basketball. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers a highlight-worthy performance, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Now, obviously, I'm in Canada, so I'm rooting for my guy, SGA. And, when you go on to FanDuel's site, you can kind of track stats and be able to make very precise and very informed bets. And for someone like SGA, who's always going to bring you a big performance, is always going to, show off when you don't think he has anything left in the tank. I mean, he's a great person to be able to bet live on. So he's someone I got my eye on going into the NBA Finals for sure. Are you new to FanDuel? Right now is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we are back. This is Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm Chelsea Leite here with Lucas Seehafer, and we are talking Minnesota Lynx. And I mean, we're recording this on Wednesday. There's no WNBA games tonight on the schedule, but the Lynx played last night at home. Yeah, it was at home against the Phoenix Mercury. I had to think about that for a second. But the Lynx go to 8-0 on the season. They're still undefeated. Them and New York currently are the only two teams that are still undefeated in the WNBA season. But they come into Phoenix and they play a not very good first half, got better as the half went on, and then just absolutely crushed them in the second half. And so for you, what did you see differently in the first or in the second half that they weren't doing in the first half?
Yeah, and that's kind of been a theme of the entire season, where and then Cheryl has talked about this, and the players have talked about it as well, being able to play a consistent, full game, a full 40 minutes in order to really, be successful in the long run. But I think really, when I was watching the game last night, there were a couple times in the first half where I was like, I think they kind of did what they wanted to do, at least on the defensive end, correctly. It's just, Phoenix made a shot, or, they made a tough shot and made a tough basket. It's like, okay, throw your hands up. What can you do? Sometimes talented teams are going to do that. But over the course of the entire game, I think what that change in the second half is really a testament to the Lynx's depth, because they can just keep chucking players at you who are going to be consistent in how they play. And over the course of a full game, they're just going to not only grind you down, but to be blunt, out talent the other teams, especially on a team like Phoenix that has most of their highly talented players out due to injury. And just that overall consistency and energy is going to eventually wind teams down. And we've seen that over the course of the season. If you look at the final scores, at least in some of the games, especially at the beginning of the season, the first 3, 4, 5 games, they were winning, but they were winning relatively close. And they maybe had to come back. The game against the Connecticut Sun comes to mind, where they came back from down 15 with 5 minutes left in the game. Where they kind of had to fight and scratch and claw their way back. Now, you could argue, hey, if the Lynx want to win a title, they can't be doing that. But you could also, on the other side of the coin, say, the truly great teams do that, where they can still fight through an off night and still come out on top. And I think that's what we're seeing now. And Cheryl had mentioned, I forget after which game it was exactly, but how they're just now, especially now that Kayla McBride is back, really getting into like the rotations and that kind of stuff that they wanted to do, that they envisioned during the off season. So it wasn't overly surprising to me that, at the beginning of the year, yes, they were winning, but they kind of looked clunky here and then, especially on the defensive end of the court. But now that they've got everybody that they want, they're starting to kind of hum a little bit better.
Yeah. And I mean, it just goes to show, you mentioned Cheryl a bit, but her like in-game adjustments from half to half and even just from quarter to quarter are so evident in like, she just is so skilled at being able to read the game live and be able to make those adjustments. And I mean, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but they announced earlier today that Sandy Brondello won Coach of the Month for May over Cheryl Reeve. I want to know if you agree with that or if you think Cheryl should have gotten it.
Yeah, I mean, Cheryl's the best at what she does. And I think that's evident in the, not even this season or last season, but over the course of her career. I think back to the 2020 season as being supremely evident of this, where Cheryl was very blunt during the entire season, basically being like, hey, we're outperforming our talent here. And if you remember, that's the year that like Crystal Dangerfield won Rookie of the Year after being a second-round pick, and obviously the wobble and all that stuff. But what she wasn't saying in that, and saying it in so many words, and I think we all agreed when we were covering it, is like, yeah, the reason why they're outperforming expectations is because they have the best coach on the planet. And I think like what you said, her ability to make changes, make adjustments, whether it's quarter, timeout, halftime, what have you. What I've also noticed is that, Cheryl, she's not opposed to getting fiery on the bench, or even like things like, pregame, postgame, that kind of stuff. But what I've really noticed this year is a sense of like, hey, if the team messes up, like, yeah, I'm disappointed in that, but we just need to get to the next possession, and eventually we know things are going to work out. I think that goes to show that she has a supreme trust in her team. And the athletes have talked about that as well, as how they all kind of trust each other. Courtney Williams, she went 0 in one game and then came back and was the leading scorer. And she said after that game, like, hey, yeah, 2 games ago, I was playing like crap, and coach went to, they call her T, they call Heidemann T, went to T, and T played great. And then the next night I was playing great, so coach went with me. Like, we have that ability to not only trust each other, but like understand that like, hey, I am playing like crap right now, and my teammate is playing great, and I'm not going to get angry with the coach that I'm not playing. I think those kind of elements are things that are maybe not often discussed when we talk about like, what makes a team great, because they're hard to quantify, right? But that trust, and it's evident on the court that these athletes, they trust each other, they like each other, they know where each other is on the court, they know where they're supposed to be on the court, and that's just comes with coaching. So I think to give hats off to Cheryl for this 8-0 start. Like I said, I think she's the greatest that she's ever done. I think she's one of the greatest coaches in basketball history, period, men's or women's. And it's really on display here.
Yeah. If I wasn't so sure that she wouldn't leave Minnesota, I'd want her to come to Toronto, but she's not leaving Minnesota. So I can not get my hopes up on that one. But kind of heading back into like another thing, we talked about depth. We talked about Napheesa Collier being the best, player on the team. In your head, it's obviously Napheesa up here. Who's the next tier of player for Minnesota? Like, who's that person who is going to step up if, say, for example, Fee has to miss a game here or there?
Yeah, I think the obvious answer is Kayla McBride. I think she's the perennially one of the more I hate the underrated, overrated conversation, so I'll just say underappreciated players. I think people, WNBA sickos know that Kayla McBride is a good basketball player, but until you watch the Lynx consistently, like, it's tough to really articulate like how much she means to the team, and how much like her teammates love her, and how much she loves being in Minnesota, all that kind of stuff. So Kayla McBride aside, I think Lan Smith is one of the more important players on the team, just because she can be an anchor defensively. She can stretch. She's a true kind of stretch five, where she can play in the post. She often causes a whole bunch of havoc for the other teams by cutting. She can go out to the beyond the 3-point line and nail a three. I think her acquisition, I guess it would be 2 off seasons ago now, was huge. I think she was a significant reasons why they went to the finals last year, and had a really good shot at beating the Liberty. And I think she's, again, another big reason why they're at where they are. And then also going back to Natisha Heidemann, her play has been just so phenomenal. I don't think you can say enough about how well she's played to begin this year.
Yeah, and I think it goes back, we were just talking about trust, and Alana Smith is someone who, on the broadcast last night, they were saying in the game before she hadn't scored, and now she comes into last night's game, makes a huge impact. And so being able to have that confidence that, your team isn't going to turn their backs on you, your coach isn't going to turn their back on you after one bad game is what makes the chemistry on this team really strong, but also their ability to just take it game by game and be able to, the phrase win every day is kind of thrown around in the WNBA a lot, but you really have to not have that, memory of whatever you did in the last game, good or bad, because you just have to focus on what's in front of you. And I think having that trust within the coach and the team is so evident, and the way that they celebrate each other, the way that they're able to say, yeah, like you were saying, T's playing better tonight, so she's going to go on and have more minutes, or, whoever. But yeah, I think it's just the one thing when you watch the Lynx, even last year, was just they look so together. And that's like such a big part. And New York is the same right now. And it's just, I think, again, I was talking about this last week at some point, that we talk about locker room, yes, like power, not having power, etc. But it really, when teams have a great locker room atmosphere, it's so evident on the way that they play. And obviously you're going to be more vocal about when you have good locker room as opposed to when you don't have a good locker room. But it's just so clear with these two top teams that that is such a, unspoken factor about their success.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that really helps is that they have a clear number one in the locker room, and it's Nafisa Collier, Yeah. And everybody on the team is basically willing to say, hey, this is, Nafisa is the sun that we revolve around. We're going to go as far as she takes us, but we're going to play our role to the best of our abilities. And it also helps that Collier is able to shoulder that burden, but also heap a bunch of praise on her teammates as well. She's always talking up her teammates after the game and that kind of stuff. So, I hate the word humble, because I don't think there is humble in professional sports. I don't think you can become a professional athlete if you're humble. But Collier is both a supreme competitor, but also just a really good teammate. And that's huge. You want to have that kind of person to build your franchise around.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to take a little bit of a break here again, but when we come back, we're going to talk specifically about the Minnesota-New York matchup, how it's going to be different this year from last year, and just kind of look ahead to see what these games that are going to come up in the next few months are going to look like between these two top championship teams. So stay tuned. This is Locked On Women's Basketball. All right, we are back here. This is Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm Chelsea Leite. That's Lucas Seehafer. We are talking about the Minnesota Lynx. And so we've talked, about what they have this season. We've talked about their previous games, their 8-0 winning streak. And I think what all of this is kind of building towards in this season is this matchup with the New York Liberty. And the flaw in whoever made the WNBA schedule is the fact that we won't get this matchup. One, I say this we could get it in the Commissioner's Cup, but again, that's not a regular season game. It doesn't count towards anything. They're still going to be very competitive. So that will be a fun way to see. We could get that. But their first regular season game isn't until July 30th or 31st. It's one of those last few days of July. And then they play 3 more times in the span of a week or 2 weeks. And so you get all of that, almost like a series. And then we will head into the playoffs, which, if it's looking like it is right now, New York and Minnesota are on a collision course to go back to the WNBA finals. So that's just kind of what this rivalry that's kind of building between these teams is looking like this season. And I mean, there's so much, I think, hype building up to whenever they meet each other first, because you have the way that the championship ended last year. You have the fact that both of these teams are currently undefeated and are, playing with MVP caliber players, are absolutely like rolling through all of the other teams in the WNBA. And the big question is, who's going to win between the two of them? And so, like, what do you think? I think my first question is just like, what are we missing out on by not getting that matchup in like May or June?
Yeah. And, like you said, seeing them all all their games clustered together in the middle of the season. I think what we're missing is kind of getting a feel for how these two teams really stack up against each other. I mean, obviously the finals went the full distance last year. They're clearly the top two teams this year. Generally speaking, both teams aren't really all that different in terms of like who makes up the bulk of their roster, or at least the production on the court. But that being said, if you look at like the advanced stats, even though I've been making the case this whole time that, hey, the Lynx are legit title contenders, like what the Liberty are doing is just nuts. They're playing just like for as efficient as the Lynx have been on offense and defense, like the Liberty have been even more efficient on both sides of the court. So it's just insane to think about. So really getting that, putting the two teams against each other and getting that litmus test about how they really do, match up against each other. I mean, it would just be fascinating to know right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you talk about big ticket moments in the WNBA, and again, I'm not going to get into all of the discourse about what the biggest big ticket things are, but like Minnesota, New York last season, their 5-game final season was one of the most hype women's basketball series that I've seen. And I mean, it was like level of like NCAA championships over the past few years. It was like level to like these big NBA moments. I'm pretty sure it outperformed like baseball and football or something like that from, years and years past. I don't have those stats in front of me, but there's such a big ticket item. And the fact that they weren't like a opening weekend feature or like the first week of the WNBA feature, and instead we get them all in August when it's kind of just like the slugging time in the WNBA in this like weird rivals week that we're like making up. And it's just like, I'm like, why not spread it out to make it so like each month everybody's like, okay, like everybody circle this on our calendar, that's the big date. So I don't know, I think it was just a weird way that worked out, and I'm not sure how intentional it was, but just thinking to where these teams are currently, like today, for you, in what ways does Minnesota beat the Liberty in terms of like what their strengths are?
Yeah, I think I sound like a broken record, but I really do think it's their depth. I think if you were to compare these two teams, I'm looking at the Liberty's roster right now. So they've got, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players averaging at least 20 minutes per game. And then 3 more after that averaging, in that 10 to 18 range kind of thing. But when you get to the bottom of that range, you're looking at either athletes like Sabali, who can't stay healthy, unfortunately, talented, but just can't stay on the court. And then after that, Isabel Harrington, Jalen Surratt, like players that just I don't think are quite at that same level as the Lynx's end of the bench. And again, once you come to the playoffs and you shorten the benches, most teams will shorten the bench anyway. At the very least, if you can have a team that you go into the playoffs and you're like, I know for sure that these 8 athletes can go out there and play their role and play well. I mean, that's a huge advantage. And I think you can for sure say that the Lynx have that 8. I don't know if the Liberty have those 8 that you would be super, confident in, but they're not far off. Like they have 7, So it's not like they're, like desperate for end of the bench help or anything like that. So I think again, it's just the Lynx's overall, modularity of their players. Because not only, so we go back to, again, it's one thing to say depth, but you go to what we were talking about before with Lan Smith. Well, when she comes off, then you have, why am I blanking on her name?
Jessica Shepard?
Yes, Jessica Shepard come in, and she fills the exact same role and has a lot of the exact same skill set. Maybe not as strong defensively, and probably a better passer, but she can still stretch the floor. She's an amazing rebounder. And that she was an element that was really missing from the team last year. So I think you can not only is the Lynx deep, but when they do, switch on and off the court, it's almost like the team doesn't really change all that much. And I'm just not sure you can say that exact same thing with the Liberty.
Yeah, and I mean, that's crucial when you get deep into the playoffs and you need to manage minutes and people's exhaustion levels and being able to survive, say, for example, those non-fee minutes or those non-Alana Smith minutes is huge. My last big question for you is, how long do you think the Lynx are going to stay undefeated?
That's a good question. We have a bet going on in the group chat for our Slack that I think it was who was it, Jacob, saying that they'll go until they play the Liberty before they lose a game, and then that could be a battle of two unbeatens at 16-0 or something like that.
That'd be wild.
Yeah, I don't think it'll go that far, just because whenever you're talking about professional sports, any team can win on any given night. But it wouldn't surprise me if they went 10, 11, 12, 13 before they dropped a game. And knock on wood that they won't go and lose their next one after I just said that. But
I know, right? Imagine everybody's going to clip this and be like, you were the reason they lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. Before we head out, I mean, we talked about how we think that the Lynx have a good shot of beating the Liberty for the championship this year. I mean, any other just big takes from this team that you just want to get off your chest?
Yeah, no, I think, I've said it before on Blue Sky and whatnot, but I do think that this is truly Napheesa Collier's MVP to lose. I mean, Asia Wilson's having an amazing season. Breanna Stewart's having an amazing season. But you just look at what Fee does and what Fee really means to the Lynx. Because like I said, you look at a team like the Liberty, and there's their star level, the top of their roster, I think is undeniably more talented than the Lynx. So if they were to unfortunately lose Breanna Stewart for a game or two, they have Sabrina, they have Jones, they have Cloud, they have players that can kind of step up. Whereas if the Lynx were to lose Collier, now we did see them play one game without Collier and they did end up winning. But not having her on the court also showed hey, how much of a centerpiece she is. And while Jessica Shepard is a strong player, she's the one who filled in while Collier was out. It's just not the same level of talent. So if they were to lose, unfortunately, one of those, if they were to lose Collier for an extended period of time, I think that would not be great news for the Lynx. So here's to, again, knocking on wood, having some good health for all athletes moving forward, but especially Collier and the Lynx, and Stewart and Sabrina and Jones and whatnot for the Liberty. So hopefully we can actually see another Lynx Liberty final. I think that would be pretty darn good.
I mean, the best of these series happens when everybody's healthy and playing at their best. So that's obviously what we want. But thank you so much for joining me today, Lucas. I mean, make sure to go check out Lucas on Blue Sky. He tweets a bunch of great stuff about the Lynx and about WNBA injuries. He's a PhD, all of that fun stuff. So make sure to go check that out. And thank you so much for catching us on Locked On Women's Basketball. We're your team every day, but I guess in the WNBA, we're your league every day because we cover the whole league. But make sure to subscribe and check us out tomorrow.